So we talked about some of the problems in modern Hollywood, the movie industry as a whole. Are there any particular studios that give you hope for something better to come? Or there's no pulling up on the plane right now where we just have further down to go before hopefully something better comes along?
Me personally, as a film watcher, and I've kind of given up on the major studios because they seem to be content to rehash old stuff, bring back old prop. But like, there are a lot of indie houses out there that I'm really excited. Blumhouse, A24. I would like to see the rise of some of these indie companies because they seem to be the ones that are willing to take the risk on the content. And I think that's why the studio system is less prominent than it used to be. And I think it started with HBO, like The Sopranos, Boardwalk Empire, and some of that stuff. They started taking risk on edgy material. And that gave the birth of these original series that we see in a lot of these streaming platforms that are equal in quality to the Hollywood stuff. They create better content because they tell more divergent stories. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's where a lot of future should be going, is allowing indie houses and upstarts to come tell that cornucopia of stories that studios are just not interested in telling anymore, or never had real interest in telling because they don't see the value of the product. And that's why these streaming services are kicking them in the head right now.
That's a good point. Totally agree on the A24. Everything I've seen of theirs, I've enjoyed, and they're pushing the envelope in a bunch of different ways. There's some things of theirs I haven't seen that my wife tells me I'm good with having missed out on. But when you're taking risks, some of them land, some of them don't. And maybe
Right.
they landed for other people and they just wouldn't have landed for me. And that's
Right.
fine. I do wish, though, that we had movie critics that were worth a damn these days because I find I can't trust most of them because we know the Rotten Tomatoes, you can pay to get the score you want. And the
Really?
critic score is often wildly incongruous to what the audience thought of the movie. Usually I agree with the audience. Even folks that I follow on YouTube, like The Critical Drinker, I think he's hilarious and he's got some good insights. Just recently, I watched a movie that he crapped all over. I went and watched it, finally gave it a chance, and I thought, this dude was just a hater, and this is a good movie. I should not have listened to him. And now I'm wondering, can I trust any of the critics that are out there? What do you think? Is
I
the
don't
art
know.
of being a film critic basically dead, or is there any hope?
So my thoughts on it are twofold because I found something interesting when in doing festivals. So, do you know that studios can limit what gets seen at festivals by saying that they will participate with their own films?
I didn't know that.
Nor did I, but this is what I've been told by some programmers. So they say, like, if you don't get accepted, you can email the programmer and get feedback. And more than once during our festival run, especially towards the end of it, once not COVID was over, but once the strike was over, studios put their films into festivals at that time so that they could start to get publicity and press around them going. And that limited the types of things that were small and independent that got put into festivals. So I wonder if the critic thing is kind of the same way. Or not that the critics are basically in the pockets of the studios, but the critics know they don't get the access to some of the big stuff that they really want to do if they don't put the right word out about stuff. That's just me thinking, but I know for a fact that programmers told us, oh, yeah, well, it was highly competitive this year because this movie with this name talent is going to be in the festival and the studios. The studio enters, it raises all rising tide, lifts all ships or whatever. So it rose the level of competition that was going to be in the rest of the programming phases, rather than if the studios hadn't been in there and got that additional press, the names drew people to the festivals. And because of that, they had an elevated level of expectation for the stuff that they showed. Even smaller festivals, because there was only so many of the big ones were basically done. But those smaller ones that were left that usually were niche or indie, now that the studios got films in them, it lifted the tides of everything else. So if we weren't good enough on the indie thing, when the studios get involved, it crowds out a whole nother level of quality that now doesn't get to be seen, and something that it might have normally had a chance in being screened at because the festivals were getting sponsorships. And I wonder if being a critic is kind of that way.
I wonder.
Just
Well,
something
and
to think
then
about.
in case anybody turns that criticism back at me, because I do short movie reviews and I reviewed all the shorts from the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival, no one's buying my opinion. This is a 100% self-funded operation. And so if you don't like my takes, well, that's just because I'm a jerk, I guess. I don't know.
Send
But
them a check.